Welcome to our video series, Hiding Behind the Mask, Conversations on Shame and Narcissism, combining psychological and spiritual perspectives. This is a 12-part series moderated by Dr. Kristen Seavey and featuring the insight of Reverend Robert Hirschfield, Episcopal Bishop of New Hampshire, and Dr. Patricia Gianotti, clinical psychologist and author. Each video segment will begin with a brief introduction by Dr. Seavey, where she will describe an overview of the content material. At the end of each section, a set of questions will appear on your screen. These questions are meant for personal reflection, or you may use the questions as a springboard for small group discussion. We hope you enjoy this series. And now, Dr. Seavey.
Good evening. Thanks so much for coming today. It's great to see so many faces of folks from our community who we have invited to participate in this conversation about shame and narcissism with two authors who we're so fortunate to have as members of our community. Dr. Patricia Gianotti, she's a clinical psychologist here, and the Right Reverend Robert Hirschfield, the Bishop of the Episcopal Church of New Hampshire. It was Dr. Gianotti's idea that she and the bishop could come together to facilitate a conversation on the topic of shame and narcissism in order to help shed light on the psychological and spiritual complexity of these issues and how we might address them as a social ailment. You've been invited to help have this be a conversation, which we thought would be a format that would be more enriching than just a simple interview. Dr. Gianotti and Bishop Hirschfield both share the understanding that it is in relationships that human beings have the most painful experiences of shame, and that healing these wounds must also happen in relationship. They've both written books on the topic, and they both understand that the healing that happens with these complex issues do not happen by reading a book. They both see and describe in their books the need for deep feelings of shame associated with narcissism to be healed in dialogue with another person, a therapist, a priest, a friend, a colleague, a spiritual guide. But this is, tricky territory, and these are complicated topics. So it's our hope that today's discussion will help illuminate ways that we can all deal with these issues in a more informed and empowered way. My first question here is for Bishop Rob. With the title of your book featuring shame, I was wondering if you could give us your sort of working definition of shame.
The working definition of shame. I think it's been helpful to distinguish the difference between shame and remorse. Remorse is something I think we all have access to. It's the oops, I made a mistake, or oops, I wish I had done this differently, or oops, I feel bad about something I've done or said. I've made a mistake. Shame is a more complicated and in some ways, I think, a more pernicious and dangerous emotion. I think most of us feel it, not all. And it says more than I've made a mistake. It says I am a mistake. That there's something constitutionally in me that is wrong. And the response to that could be either I'm going to protect myself against that feeling because it just is too thorny and jagged. It just hurts too much to feel shame, so I might just pretend I don't have it. Or I want to hide. I want to sort of separate myself from all those who may know or see who I really am as a living, breathing mistake. And in the Christian tradition, which of course, obviously I'm speaking from, it's a lie. We are made in the image of God. and as such, we are good. We make bad choices at times. We are connected to what Nikos Kazantzakis referred to in Zorba the Greek. We're connected to the full catastrophe of humankind, and yet that's not unredeemable. Shame, in a way, cuts us from that sense of redemption, I think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, remorse, I made a mistake. Shame, I am a mistake. I think that might help.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, Bishop Rob, I really liked what you said about making a distinction between remorse, or what I might call guilt, mm-hmm. About something I did or didn't do, and shame, which is really speaking more to that sense of who I am. Most of us will do whatever we can do not to experience feelings of shame, because shame often triggers companion feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. Feelings of shame are also connected to a deeply held and sometimes buried belief that I'm not worthy, I'm a loser, I can't really ever measure up to other people. This underlying belief generally comes from how someone was treated in the past, say a shaming parent, or a child who was repeatedly bullied, made fun of, particularly from a young age. This can result in an adult individual being highly sensitive to the slightest infraction, a condition we call shame-prone. These individuals are often highly reactive, easily wounded, and may lash out at others or jump to negative assumptions very quickly. In other words, they don't let very much roll off their backs. The other thing I want to speak to is a question I often get asked. People ask me, aren't there times when feeling ashamed isn't necessarily a bad thing? I mean, when people do bad things, shouldn't they feel ashamed? I think what this question is really asking is, what is the relationship between feeling shame and developing a moral compass? How I would respond is that some of the confusion here is a matter of semantics. How we're using language to describe feeling states and rules around how we should treat each other. But the act of shaming someone, particularly repeatedly shaming or belittling someone, can result in a killing off of the spirit, to the point that shamed individuals begin to believe that they aren't worthy. These beliefs and feelings are created by repeated relational patterns or interactions. For example, if a parent continually says to a child, "You'll never amount to anything," eventually the child believes this on some level and internalizes it. Guilt and remorse, on the other hand, have to do with something that a person has done or left undone that will have a negative impact or consequence on another. Remorse is the realization that our actions do have consequences, that sometimes when we do something unkind or insensitive, even unintentionally, and we hurt other people, the realization of that is a good thing. In other words, remorse is one of the feeling barometers that helps us become more relational, more sensitive to others. It helps create a sense of mutuality. It preserves a sense of equality. It tells us that these are my needs, and my needs are no more important than yours. And if my actions hurt or harm you in any way, I need to find a way to rectify my actions, to rectify the situation. We don't have to shame people to teach them how to develop a moral compass. We can teach people the value of mutuality, teach the golden rule, and a sense of responsibility to and respect for others without having to shame them into it.
The following questions are meant to stimulate personal reflection or small group discussion. We encourage you to capture a screenshot of these questions and use them for future reference. To order Dr. Gianotti's books, please contact the following websites. And Reverend Hirschfield's book is available through churchpublishing.org.